Alrighty, hello, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony DeSimone with his newest edition of Penguins Pointers. This is the playoff edition. Yes, the playoffs will be starting this week, and let's jump right in and see what we got going on. First question I want to bring up, who's going to be the goaltender for the Pittsburgh Penguins going in the first round here? We've got four options, as the Penguins have recalled their goaltender from Wilkes-Barre up. So we've got Marc-Andre Fleury, who is currently labeled as day-to-day. We have Matt Murray, who still really haven't heard an update about what happened with his injury, so we don't know if there's a timetable for him. You've got Zakhoff, who has had an average season and hasn't been that great, but there is Zakhoff. And Tristan Jarry, who's been called up from Wilkes-Barre, who has done quite well down on the farm team and has carried them through the regular season and has gotten them into the playoffs for the Calder Cup. So you've got four goaltending options, two of which are possibilities, depending on how their injuries are improving. And then you have Zakhoff, who's an average goaltender, Tristan Jarry, who's going to be expected if the Penguins started him to play in the playoffs, having not played in the NHL. So very, very, very raw talent coming up to the NHL. So that's a question that I can guarantee you all Penguins fans want to know is who the heck is going to be in net on Wednesday night when they face the New York Rangers in the first round. New York Rangers, very talented team. Rick Nash, Matt Zuccarello, Ryan McDonough. Stellar goaltending with Henrik Lundqvist, one of the best, up there with Marty Brodeur. This series will be a tough series, and we will talk about who gets through that round when we get to the bracket shortly. But the Rangers have also struggled over the last month or so of the regular season. They were holding the second spot in the Metropolitan for the entire season and just have not had a good March and April and found themselves now where they are. The Penguins will have home ice, so that means the Penguins get 4 games at home should we go to a 7-game series. So, but I'll detail more about that series when we get to the bracket coming up shortly. Next down the list, will Malkin make a return? In an interview, they had Mike Sullivan say that Malkin is now day-to-day. I had this discussion, I believe, earlier in the blog, where I said, look, I understand that you want your star player Evgeny Malkin back on the ice, but at the same time, if you're rushing his timetable, we could see a more serious injury come out of this, and Malkin's still got at least another 10, 12 years under his belt, as he's only, I think he's at either late 20s or early 30s, so I understand you want to win the Stanley Cup, but in looking at everything with the goaltending situation and other things going on with the team, is this really the year that the Penguins are going to be able to make that Stanley Cup? And that's down below. But real quick, let's look at the other players that are also day-to-day. And I thought this was funny. I was listening to the press conference that Sullivan had, and the reporter kept asking, do we have an update on Mata? And he goes, well, he's day-to-day. And then another reporter goes, what about Brian Rust? And Mike Sullivan goes, well, he's day-to-day. And then lastly, another reporter goes, where's Bo Bennett? He didn't practice today. What's his table? And he goes day-to-day. And after the fourth time, because he already said it for Malkin once, after the fourth time, you kind of see Sullivan chuckle. And everybody in the room chuckles because he's just giving him the day-to-day answer. And it's like, who is going to be on the ice Wednesday night? And in the way with all these players labeled as day-to-day, a goaltending decision still not made, This is weird for Penguins fans to kind of sit there. And I can guarantee you it's probably making Penguins fans anxious as to what is going to happen in the playoffs with all this uncertainty with the team going on right now, as no one knows what lines are going to be out there, what goaltender is going to be in the cage. So, and that goes down to my next point. Can the Penguins win the Stanley Cup? I'd sure want them to. But the reality of how this season is going and the injuries and setbacks that this team has had and the struggles with the power play unit, I don't think the Penguins have it in them. They'll make a run, but it's going to be just like the seasons before. It's going to fall short. It would be different if the Penguins had a goaltender in Marc-Andre Fleury or Matt Murray that finished the season strong, proved that they could be a stellar goaltender in tight situations and get those wins. And Murray has done that, but Murray's a rookie goaltender. No disrespect to Murray, he would not handle taking the team into the playoffs. Rookie goaltender's not going to do that, especially in his first year and win the Stanley Cup now. You need the experience first to really make a run in a Stanley Cup. Now, if Marc-Andre Fleury had been healthy and got through the rest of March and the month of April and had been stellar and strong, then I'd say, yeah, we have a really good shot at winning the Cup. The goaltender's hot, and we're doing well. But the only thing the Penguins really have going for them now amidst all the injuries is that they have the scoring talent. And that's fine, but it's going to turn into shootout matches where the score will be 7-6. And the Penguins won't be on the winning side. I mean, you can only score so many goals, and teams have been able to shut the Penguins down. But that's where I think it's going to be, is the goaltending is going to be the Achilles heel for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So with that, let me jump over and show you the bracket that I had filled out for this year's Stanley Cup, and I will go through each series real quick and kind of explain why I picked who I picked. We'll start in the Eastern Conference. The Capitals and the Flyers. The Capitals will get through in 7. This will not be an easy series for the Capitals. This is exactly the matchup I wanted going into the playoffs. I wanted the Flyers to get the bottom seed and go up against the Capitals because I felt of the teams that would have made the 8th seed this season, the Flyers had the best chance to take out the Capitals. They still won't do it, but they'll make it a 7-game series. They'll drag it out. They'll wear down the Capitals a little bit as they go through with their playing style. So the Washington Capitals get through. Penguins and Rangers. The Penguins will get through in 6. Though the Rangers have a strong goalie in Henrik Lundqvist, they have struggled. The Penguins have now flipped the coin and do well against the Rangers, whereas in previous seasons that was not the case. And I feel regardless of the goaltending situation, the Penguins' offense will get them through that round and on to the next. Going down, Florida against New York Islanders. The Panthers will get through, along with the good goaltending of Luongo and Jaromir Jagr as a strong forward. The Islanders have not had that Stanley Cup run of a season. Tavares has had an average season at best with 70 points. He's one of the players that's up for the scoring title. So I don't feel like the Islanders have really shown they won it this year, but they still got in. So the Panthers will get through them in 6. The interesting one that probably some fans are confused about why I picked Detroit. This one's interesting because Detroit kind of backed into the playoffs, if you will. Didn't play well, lost the last 2 games, but because of the way the Flyers in Boston panned out, they got in. And they kept their streak to 25 playoff seasons, which is incredible. But here's my reason why. Tampa Bay is without Steven Stamkos, and they're also without their top defenseman in Strawman. So Tampa Bay is a little depleted, and Detroit will be able to piggyback off of that. And Tampa Bay is the only team that Detroit had a chance to beat. If they would have had to have faced anybody else, like the Capitals, they would have been clobbered in 4. But because they're facing Tampa Bay, who has injury struck with their star players, Detroit has a chance. And Detroit is a really good playoff team, considering they've made it 25 seasons. They'll use that experience and their knowledge of the playoffs and how to manage, and they'll get through that first round in 5. I just don't see Tampa Bay without Steven Stamkos. It's just, Ben Bishop can be as good of a goaltender as he is. It's just not going to work. They won't score. So Detroit gets through. So let's jump over to the West. Dallas gets by Minnesota. I'm going to leave it at that. Minnesota has had an awful end to the regular season. They seem to have no drive. And I just feel like Dallas is going to roll over them in 4. It'll be a sweep. Minnesota has not played well and do not look like a healthy team. Moving on, St. Louis and Chicago. St. Louis did not want to finish where they finished and have to go up against the Chicago Blackhawks. Unfortunately, that's where they ended up, and Chicago will get through in 6, in my opinion. Chicago's got the experience of been there, done that, considering they've won 3 cups in the last 6 years. They will get by St. Louis just by the sheer luck of St. Louis got the bad end of the coin here, or the short end of the stick, if you will, in terms of they have to play Chicago in the first round. So Chicago's in to the next round. Move down further, Anaheim will get by Nashville. Nashville doesn't really have a ton of playoff experience. Anaheim's got solid goaltending, and I just feel that the Ducks have had a decent season and can make a playoff run this year, as Nashville, who started out real good, but kind of finished just average in the West this season, so I don't feel like Nashville's going to be able to get through that. 5-game series, the Ducks will get through. Going down, the Kings and the Sharks. Once again, another brutal. This is like a Philly-Pittsburgh series here. These two teams don't like each other, but here's why the Kings get through, and this is going to be, you'll see why the Kings get through everything in general. Jonathan Quick, great playoff goaltender, and with other players like Doughty on their team, just the Kings have had this experience. They won the Cup in 2014. They've been there. They've done that. They'll get through to the next round. So, let's stay with the West here. Dallas gets by Chicago. Dan's going to hate me for this, but Dallas gets by Chicago. This turns into a series where Dallas finally says enough is enough of the Chicago Blackhawks running the Western Conference and making it to the finals. They will take them down in a 6 or 7 game series and knock them out, and the Western Conference teams will rejoice. Down below, Anaheim and the Kings. The Kings get through. Once again, Jonathan Quick's goaltending. The Kings have star players. Anaheim, for the most part, does not have those 2 or 3 really good players that can carry them through. And the Kings have shown that they can win in the Honda Center, which is the Anaheim Ducks' home this season and in previous seasons. So the Kings will be able to get through. This will be probably a 5 or a 6er. So that wraps up that in the West. We'll stick with the West and just go right into the conference finals. Kings and Dallas, same deal. Dallas, great season, great team. The Kings have been here. They've done that. They've figured out what it takes to get to the Stanley Cup. And the thing with the Kings this season is they've silently exceeded the 100-point mark, the regular season. And most networks like NBC and the Hockey Network really didn't pick up on the fact that the Kings had a really good season this year. And it kind of went under the radar because everybody was watching Chicago, everybody's watching Dallas and St. Louis to see who finished where. And everybody just kind of looked over the Kings, and the Kings are going to be the surpriser this year. They're a great team, and they kind of slipped under the radar. And Jonathan Quick in the playoffs has showed that he is a fantastic goaltender under pressure. And that's why I see them in the Stanley Cup final. Jumping back over to the Eastern Conference, I hate to say it, Penguins fans, the Capitals will get the better of the Penguins. It'll be a 7-game series. It'll be a heartbreak. But the Capitals will make it through by the fact that they are a bigger team and they can be physical when they need to be, and they will beat up and bruise the Penguins. It's different when we play them once. We can get in and get out. But when the Penguins have to play them 7 times, or even 4 times in a row at that point, because that's the minimum, it's different, and the Capitals will get through. The downfall here is even if Fleury is in, he won't be as hot as Braden Holtby, who has tied Marty Brodeurs' record this season. So, Capitals get through. Florida, Detroit, Florida gets through, simply because Detroit won't be able to handle them. Detroit got through by virtue of a team they're playing at the right time. They won't get by Florida, so we'll keep that short and simple. Panthers and Capitals. Yager's had a great season. Luongo will do well. The Capitals will roll right through them. That physicality will wear down the Florida Panthers defense, which has been spotty at times this season, and Ovechkin will if they get on the power play, will just mutilate that team on the power play unit with his slap shot. So that'll be the end of the Florida Panthers run, and we will see the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup final against the Kings. And if you didn't notice the little logo, I did select the LA Kings to win the Stanley Cup. It is not because I don't want the Capitals to win the Stanley Cup. It is because the Kings were in this position 2 years ago and won against the Rangers. Capitals have not been to a cup final in a while. They don't have that experience of how to handle the pressure of the Stanley Cup. They have not won a Stanley Cup. So, and it will be a stepping stone for them, and I bet you in the next season or two they'll probably ring one in, but it won't be this season. Jonathan Quick will stand on his head as a goaltender in this series and will carry the Kings through and take down the Capitals. So, that's my prediction. Hopefully, my prediction with the Penguins is absolutely wrong, and we find the Penguins in the Stanley Cup Finals. But I have to look at it from a perspective of I see what the Penguins have and what they don't have. I see what other teams have, and this is the way I see it playing out. LA Kings will win the Stanley Cup this season. The Penguins will unfortunately be disappointed. But what are you going to do? With that, let's jump over and look at the games for the first series. Rangers and Penguins will be Wednesday at 8. First two are home as we have the better seeding. Game 2 is the 16th on Saturday. Game 3 would be Tuesday. Game 4 Thursday. 5, 6, and 7 will be announced as they become necessary. The tips to win: offensive pressure. Keep the shots up. It's what's carried them so far since Sullivan has taken over. They still finish the season leading the league in shots. Offensive pressure. That ties into the third point, which is the aggressive forecheck. Play solid in the neutral ice area and keep them out of the defensive zone, especially with the fact that if we don't know who's going to be in net, we kind of want to keep them out of the Penguins' defensive zone so they're not getting a lot of shots on goal at the goaltender that we don't know who it is yet. Second point, solid goaltending. It's almost like an oxymoron. They're going to have solid goaltending out of whoever goes in the net. Because on the other end of the ice is Henrik Lundqvist, who is a veteran, always does well in the playoffs, and will be stellar for the New York Rangers. So the Penguins are going to have a goaltender that will be stellar in net for them on the other side. So, got to get shots on the net, got to be aggressive and keep them out of the Penguins' defensive zone, and whoever's in net is going to have to make some great saves. Zakhoff made some great saves against the Flyers to keep that game 3-1. And I was really surprised to see how well he did play coming in cold. But that was one game. And the Penguins need a player or a goaltender that's going to be able to go out there, face the same team numerous times, and win. A one-game matchup is different than a series. And this is where the shortcoming of the Penguins will be this season if their goaltending doesn't somehow pull something amazing in the playoffs. So, this series, like I said, the Penguins will probably win in 6, but will make it no further in the playoffs. But my prediction could be bogus. We could find the Penguins making a march to the Stanley Cup at the end of the season and walking and carrying that Stanley Cup on home ice. Who knows? That's why they're called predictions. That's why we all do bracket challenges. I could be dead wrong. But only time will tell. As for this podcast, I'm done. Hope you guys enjoyed and got some insight on the other series that will be going on in the playoffs as you are filling your brackets out, I'm sure, for tomorrow when Game 1s will begin. If you guys haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button down below if you liked it. If you didn't like it, sorry. Not much I can do for you. But thank you guys for listening, and I will catch you guys next time. Take care.